as said earlier, hopefully people get a notification discussing the Zaporizhzhia sort of nuclear disaster type thing going on at the moment, or upcoming disaster. I'll be doing a Geiger counter review tomorrow on this one, which is pretty good actually, but I'll put it through its paces in the actual video. So, yeah, basically, what this stream will be about, and we want to keep it on topic as much as possible, is talking about in Ukraine, the Zaporizhzhia thing. Now, I did a video on the other day, but it's escalated again since then. All right, Connor? As it's kept escalating since then, I thought it'd be worth doing a stream on it, because a few people said, when can you do an X sort of webcam stream for a topical theme or whatever, so that will be the one we do today, because it's quite related to the channel. All right, Dan? All right, Aleko. Right, if you've not seen anything in the news about it, Aleko, in March, Russia took over a Ukrainian nuclear power plant, and while they've been in control of it, they've been mismanaging it, they've been shelling it, things like that, holding the staff hostage. So the chances it could cause another Chernobyl. So that's the really quick rundown of it. There's obviously a lot more in-depth stuff about it, but you know, the really quick sort of rundown of it is basically that we've got a reactor, or up to 6 reactors, that could possibly explode, plus nuclear waste that's stored on site. Right, Hawk Genesis and Justin. So that's the sort of thing anyway, and as I said, hopefully people can keep it on topic. Because obviously this is meant to be a stream talking about a particular thing or whatever. I don't know if it'd be 10 times bigger than Chernobyl, probably about 6 times, but yeah. The fact is, it's rather than 1 reactor going up, it's potentially 6. And you've got some nuclear waste stored on site as well. Because of the fact that obviously they have a storage yard there for essentially nuclear waste before it goes elsewhere. It's not the topic of the stream, Tony. If we're doing a stream on a certain topic, we're discussing a certain topic, not another one. So yeah, the current worries, all right, okay. But yeah, this is going to be one of the more topical ones. The current worries are obviously either you have a meltdown through not managing the plant properly, or a lack of power, because of the fact that electricity lines and things like that have been shelled. You could also have backup generators shelled, things like that. Or that you actually have somehow the actual plant itself hit with enough munitions or explode somehow, you know, causing a Chernobyl-like thing where the actual reactor explodes itself. They don't just use one model of suit, Tony. They have quite a few. Vintage collectibles, no, because that means they'd get wiped out as well. Like I said, the much bigger threat is obviously something going wrong in a nuclear power plant. All right, Peach, and all right, Bloody Monday. And just for the mods, give people a timeout if they get warned to stay on topic and start talking about random stuff, because like I've said, the problem is, Aleko, because the Russians are storing ammunition there and explosives, if they try and move in on it, they might just blow it up. And that's part of the problem. And that's why the UN and everybody, the IAEA, is so sort of worried about it, is because of the fact when you have a nuclear power plant, you don't use it to store bombs. All right, bots? The smoker is a meme, Connor. It's them literally having their bases shelled, because Russia just passes it off as, oh, somebody smoked on our base. So the reality is that they've just been shelled in those incidents. I'd actually be more worried if it was a smoker, because that means that Zaporizhzhia would go up any second. But no, the smoker thing is a meme. It's not reality. It's based on Russian, thing of, oh, it was an accident, we dropped something, that's why our base or our ship blew up. I don't know that one, Peach, the RGO. I know the one that's the regular fused one, but not if it's the impact version. It depends, Tony. I think Poland said they'd consider it an attack on them. Yes, Leko, but you have to also assume that the people giving orders and doing all this bollocks are the same people, that actually care. Because how many people have they killed so far? Like the dying old man in Russia. That's an 84. Yeah, I'm not allowed to touch any of that during a live stream because of YouTube policies. Okay, that's not the one I'm thinking of, Peach. Then the one I was thinking of is RGD, the Soviet one that is like the sort of brown, sort of round one with a pin in the top. Yeah, okay. The reason they've been exploding is because Ukraine's targeted them, but obviously Ukraine's not shelling Zaporizhzhia for obvious reasons. I just literally said, Aleko, you can't pick up like any sort of deactivated guns, whatever on the stream. It's against their policies. Right, Flazzy? So, and I forgot, there's another potential thing that can go wrong, and I said about both meltdown and reactor being shelled. The other one's that the nuclear waste sites there get shelled, just causing essentially like a dirty bomb effect. I mean, the COVID variant, Justin, just to go off topic a bit, is the thing I'd be least worried about out of all those, because so far all the variants have been getting less dangerous, not more dangerous. All right, Fuzzy. Yeah, basically, Peach, like we've said before, some of them are a bit strange, aren't they, and all that sort of stuff. I don't think so, Aleko. Twitch is for streaming video games. Well, there might be some good bits about it, bots, but there's probably also a lot of bad bits. Yeah, I've heard about that, Kirk. Another thing that was worrying some Western observers is the situation's got worse there since Russia sent a CBRN general to the site. So they think they're on purposely like rigging it up to be as bad as possible. Like not like a CBRN NBC like trained person is there to like prevent a disaster. Like they're there to basically how do we weaponize this as much as possible. Well, that's what I'm saying. You can't do that because that's why they've rigged it up with explosives and put like ammo crates and munitions everywhere. It's so they essentially can artillery Ukraine from the nuclear plant that can't be hit back. I think the only practical way of doing it, assuming that they wouldn't actually just blow it up out of spite, would be to just do like what they've been doing in is it Kherson? And like just blowing up all the bridges behind them, if that's even possible where this is. I don't know if it is. To basically cut them off from supplies. So you end up causing starvation and everything else if they stay there. But like we said, this is basically playing, like nuclear Russian roulette at the moment. Because there's so many things that could go wrong that, would cause basically either a minor to basically a Europe-ending sort of disaster. But we've had lots of shelling so far, Daniel. This is the problem. There was shelling on the day Russia took over the plant, and there's, I think, been at least 3 or 4 separate days of shelling, like in the in-between period. Yes, Connor, although some of them have fled apparently, which means that when there's nobody on site that's got like let's say everybody stays on site. The longer they're held at gunpoint and like used as hostages to run the plant, the more likely they are to make mistakes. Because obviously, if you're like sleep exhausted and you're being threatened with death, you're probably not going to run a nuclear power plant very well. And other ones have been basically running away. And in that situation, you're understaffed. And I doubt the Russian troops know how to safely shut down a reactor. If it exploded in the worst possible way, Vintage, as in all 6 reactors went up, let's just say, for example, it would mean a massive nuclear cloud would cover most of Europe, eliminating all life and everywhere it goes. Because it's not his choice to do it, Neville. The Russians own the plant, not him. Yeah, good point, Peach, because you do get a lot of people that sometimes make jokes on these things where it sounds like a weird conspiracy theory. Yeah, Russia is the ones in control of the plant, so unless Russia allows nuclear inspectors in, they can't get in. No, as I've said, it's 6 generators, Irish guy, not one. RBMKs are actually really big reactors. But like I said, it's not. You can't really say it as a times 10, times 100 number. But the point is, it would be really bad. Well, they've not been allowing them in. Oh, right, Neville's a fucking Russian troll. I'm just getting rid of him. There's no fucking UN inspectors there, Neville, because the Russians haven't allowed them in. Russia controls the plant. Again, anybody that basically says, "Oh, it's Ukraine's fault that Russia's invading them and doing this," fuck off. Sorry to be quite blunt, but that is just literally my attitude at this point. If you're blaming a country that's been invaded for what the occupying forces are doing, you can fuck right off. Again, no profile pictures. Whatever, doesn't surprise me. Hazmat suits, again, I assume you just mean regular NBC CBRN suits. For nuclear contamination, anything you can get at a good price, because all they're designed to do is get stuff on the suit, not you. So even a builder's dust suit does the same job. Hazmat and CBRN suits are more for like chemical exposure, where the chemicals eat into stuff. If you mean Irish guy for like backup cooling, then yes. That's why nuclear plants are meant to be on the grid, obviously, to export electricity, but also if something goes wrong, you can import electricity to run stuff. Well, again, AK, I think it's more the leadership there that, just don't give a shit. Yeah, but you do know if a plant explodes, Night Ghost, the radiation doesn't go after 3 days. It will keep going and going and going until the half-life of the materials run out. And considering what, like, the half-life of, I don't know what uranium-235 is off the top of my head, but, like, cesium-137, strontium-90, they're roughly 25 to 30 years each. Unless you're hoping the wind's only going to blow east for 30 years, that won't make a difference. Chernobyl burnt for days and days and days. Before they eventually put the fire out. If you've got a fire with like nuclear material burning, you're going to have to hope that wind's blowing in one direction for a very long time. Well, in terms of a meltdown type explosion, Aleko, no. The problem is if it's being shelled and there's ammunition stored inside it, then yes. Because Chernobyl blew up just because the reactor was a bad design, basically, and it was, staffed by people that didn't know what they were doing. If you have a regular, very safe nuclear reactor, but you put explosives all around it, and then those go off, it might as well be a Chernobyl. So the answer is yes, but not because of the design of the reactor itself. It's because of the design of putting literally explosives in a nuclear building. Any of them, boss, but they won't protect you from fallout. You need to be in the fallout shelter, as in like a bunker basement type thing. You still get fried with a suit on. It's just that the suit stops the stuff getting on your skin. It would be worse than Chernobyl, potentially, speaking truth media. It depends. It depends what happens. But yes, like I've said, it's essentially the easiest way to think of it would be a giant dirty bomb. And as we've said, these things are really scary. Yeah, but bear in mind, Night Ghost, that alpha and beta stuff, if it gets in livestock, gets into plants, you have to cull those cows, destroy crops, and then that's starvation. Or if you miss it, then people get the stuff inside their systems. unless you're going to say every time the wind's blowing those materials around, people don't go outside or wear gas masks, which won't be the case, so ingest and inhale them anyway. So they're just as fucked. Yeah, it was Sweden, wasn't it, Connor, that first found out about the radiation during Chernobyl? Aleko, so they can shell Ukraine and Ukraine won't shell them back. The US said the other week it's basically like using it as a nuclear shield. Who knows, Justin? Again, China at the moment, I think we won't go too much into China because it's another topic, but I think they're more worried about threatening Taiwan at the moment. Yes, but not the containment building, speaking the truth. What happened in Chernobyl was they dug ditches and things in the Red Forest and looted stuff. It really depends where you live, Night Ghost. Because if you're literally right in the direct line of nuclear fallout, you're not going to be all right. You need to evacuate the area. Because again, unless you've got a really, really deep basement, literally putting a bit of earth in front of your house isn't going to be enough in terms of like really dangerous levels of fallout. Again, I think the problem is people assume that fallout is like, you know, the result you get from one bomb going off somewhere and then being downwind of it. You'd really need to evacuate. I think Ukraine said they're already planning to evacuate. Is it like 300,000 people in case of the worst case scenario? Now, speaking of truth, in case of wind blowing stuff, it doesn't matter where you are because it can go across like half the world. Because during the nuclear bomb tests in America, most of the radiation didn't land in Nevada, interestingly enough. It went about halfway across the US just because of the wind. No, I've not. I'll have to check that out later, Rob. I mean, I know a lot about radiation sickness just because I find it interesting. But I didn't know Dr. John Campbell had done a video on it. I don't know because I'm not in the US. Well, Fallout 4 is a video game. And Fallout isn't a very realistic video game at that. It's about mutants in the future. Oh, an alternative history future. I'd advise you watch something like The Day After or Threads if you actually want to see what happens in a post-nuclear scenario. Because bear in mind, most people don't live in vaults. Yeah, Rob, well, the scary thing is, and I don't want to sound like somebody being like ooh, it's happening, is Threads is probably the most realistic film I can think of in, like, consequences. Although in lots of countries you wouldn't have any damage done to your infrastructure through nuclear weapons, but the fallout effect would be the exact thing. You know, in terms of if you're downwind of that stuff hitting you. I don't know if I've got any Geiger counters handy that I can turn on to demonstrate how fast they'd be ticking it, even something much lower than that. But obviously, I've done videos on it. This is the one I'll be reviewing, as said, tomorrow. But it's quite a good counter. But like I said, I've not properly tested on lots of things yet. I'm not a big fan of Metro, in all honesty. Again, I'd rather we keep this on topic and not talk about video games during the fact that we're meant to be talking about stuff that's going on in real life. All right, Pergio? Well, at the moment, I'm more worried, like I said, rather than nukes being fired at us. I will answer your question, but at the moment, I'm more worried about Zaporizhzhia than anything else, because that's literally, you know, a massive nuclear plant being rigged with explosives in the middle of a war zone with bombs going off around it. But the thing is, I don't think if we were being nuked, they'd use tactical nukes against us. I think they'd just use big bombs, you know, try and kill everybody. Because the thing is, again, the main targets of major cities and military bases are most of, like, you know, the planning maps of nuclear war. But the thing with tactical nukes is they're the ones where you think the enemy is going to only respond to you with similar things. And most Western countries don't have tactical nukes. The idea is that you don't use nukes, or if you use the nukes, it's to wipe somebody out entirely. That's why it worries a lot of people that Russia have this mid-step, which is like tactical nukes, because the West basically got rid of those. Like America used to have them as things like the Davy Crockett and like was it the Honest John bomb or whatever it was called. The ones of, you know, like small yield bombs for fighting sort of on the front line, whereas basically they realised that would just cause an escalation to all-out nuclear war, so they were sort of gotten rid of. Do you mean safely decommission it, Rob? As in to completely get rid of it? Probably years, I imagine. Well, Leo, I would be worried in the sense that fallout from Ukraine will definitely reach the UK if the wind blows west, because it did during the time of Chernobyl, just not as bad as obviously countries closer to it. But obviously, if most of Europe gets wiped out, I would be pretty worried. And again, like I said, if you have, and I don't mean to sound like I'm trying to scaremonger, the point is if you have Europe's biggest nuclear power plant go entirely up in smoke, you know, like we're saying, it's Chernobyl times 6 to times 10, basically. And Chernobyl did enough damage to what it did in, like, the immediate area. With the US, I don't know, because you're lucky enough there to be half the world over, essentially. I imagine some might get there. But bear in mind, one of the other worries for a lot of scientists at the moment is if it poisons all the rivers then going into the Mediterranean. So then you can't catch lots of fish because they're all contaminated. You know, lots of the oceans are contaminated. I'd think somehow, because again, the problem is I don't think the Russians respond to anything unless it's force. What I would say is basically you say that you're sending some sort of troops in regardless from, you know, a more powerful Western country, you know, and say if you don't let us do that, then there'll be really, really strong consequences to the point the Russians basically have to submit on it, and then you shut the plant down, you know, using Western sort of scientists or whatever. All right, Byron, I did do a members stream last week, but maybe it didn't notify you, or you might have been busy. It depends where you are, I'm accident prone, because as I've said before, if you're too close to something on that scale, you can't just sit in a basement for a week and hope it will be fine. You know, you'd have to basically evacuate to somewhere else. I suppose you could get Switzerland to do that, Persia. Especially because Switzerland does have nuclear power, you know, and they're very well trained in physics. Oh, they're already struggling, Justin, because there's already starvation being caused by lots of the grain just not being harvested or rotting, you know, when it was trapped in Odessa. All right, see you next time, Byron. I'm doing one tomorrow about 7 or 8 p.m. But yeah, there's already so there's already problems. It would just get worse. But the thing is, Night Ghost, like I said, I wouldn't worry too much about what they say because they've lied about everything so far, as in, we won't invade Ukraine, we've invaded Ukraine, we won't bomb the civilians, oh wait, we're bombing civilians. So, you know, I don't think you can let somebody with nukes bully you in a sense. We're not really talking about China on this stream, Sing, we're more talking about what's going on in Ukraine. Again, can I just remind everybody to keep it on topic? And like Pete said, if you're actually making a joke, please put joke like JK after it or whatever. just because of the fact that this is a very easy sort of thing for people to get blocked or timed out on, because of the fact we had somebody earlier that was basically saying it's Ukraine's fault whatever Russia does. So I'm pretty sure that was a troll or whatever, or a shill. But like I said, I don't have much tolerance for people like that on these sort of threads. It's normally south or southeast, so in theory, Dr. Scopify is worse for Russia, but you still don't want to rely on that. In Western Europe, it would depend where you are. I'm assuming Van Au in your name, it'd be Netherlands. Like, the thing is, lots of the old civil defense stuff is useful, don't get me wrong. But when that is based on the idea of fallout from a couple of bombs, rather than the fact that, like, there's a continuous flow of radioactive dust going everywhere, it's a bit of a different scenario. Well, a mask and NBC suit will certainly protect you in the short term, because obviously the mask stops you inhaling or ingesting nuclear particles when you've got it on. The suit means it's easier to get off of you, but the problem is against strong gamma rays, they won't do anything, because gamma rays go through everything, basically. Michael, most ration packs, like MREs, are normally like 10 to 20 years. It depends on the MRE and the country, but most of them last absolutely ages. And you can eat them out of date, most of them, as long as they're stored properly, and they'll just taste a bit weird. They won't be bad for you. But yeah, Fluzzy, like I said, there's going to be a lot of problems, aren't there, with food, I think, in the short term, in terms of Russia is a big grain exporter, and they're not exporting to a lot of countries because they're doing it based on who their friends are. Ukraine's had a lot of their grain damaged and can't export a lot of it, and they're only just exporting now. Other countries have had bad droughts and like bad harvests. It depends where you are, lot breaker. Over here, US rations are really, really overpriced, but we can get British rations for the cheap prices. I've got quite a lot. Yeah, just in 2020 we had Corona, and it's only got worse since. If you mean the war, Pergio, no. Just because of the fact that I think with somebody like Putin, he's not going to stop basically till he's lost his entire army, like got them all killed, or gets total victory. Because I think he's like one of those sad cunts that has to save face, Yeah, it's just basically an affordable lock breaker unless you're buying something expensive. For smaller items, it's just silly. Like, the thing is with nuclear winter is we don't know if it's real or not, in the sense that we never luckily found out. But from something like Zaporizhzhia, you wouldn't get nuclear winter. The idea of nuclear winter is if you had loads and loads and loads and loads of nuclear bombs going off all at the same time, they just kick up so much dust you'd blot out the sun. You wouldn't get that with just a big fire. Right, what happens if it catches on fire, speaking of truth media, is in you have an explosion and it catches on fire, is wherever the smoke gets blown, it literally poisons. That's basically the easiest way of, that's the only sort of thing. So, you don't ever want to be downwind of it, essentially. You basically have constant radioactive materials going up with the smoke and then landing down as like rain or just ash in places. And then if they get inside your body or you're too close to them for long enough, they kill you. That's basically the short answer. Well, we can only hope Vintage Collectibles about that. And I'm sure there's spies, yeah, and vice versa. That's just politics, isn't it? It really just depends where the wind's blowing at the time, speaking of truth media. If you look at what happened with the fallout maps from Chernobyl, lots of it went north and east, but a lot of it did end up going west as well. So both sides obviously have lost a lot of men. We don't know exactly how many of Ukraine, but probably a lot less than Russia because they're mostly on the defensive. All of the Russian offensives have stalled to a halt now because they're just meeting too tough resistance. So what's happening now, Pergio, is Ukraine's attacking like Russian bases in their rear, like ammo dumps, airfields, things like that, with donated Western equipment like cruise missiles, HIMARS, stuff like that. So what's happening is Ukraine seems to be trying to wear down all of the Russian logistics so they can start counterattacking, but they might wait, months to do that. But they've all, like the other day, they blew up all of the Russian airfield on Crimea. I've not seen any Night Ghost. I mean, maybe they'll just shove Protect and Survive back on TV. Yeah, sounds like a good idea, Justin, if you spotted them at a good price. I need to find where my Scott Pro mask is, because I really like that mask. It's one of my favourite masks, and I just haven't seen it in ages. I know I definitely have it, it's just which bag I put it in and where I put it, I don't know. Actually, come to think of it, I think I've stored it in one of my green bags. Like green, French and Belgian style bags. So I have to go through all those. So I know at one point I got a satchel for it, put it in a satchel. And obviously it's now in its satchel somewhere, and that's why I've not seen it. So I have to have a look for it at some point. All right, Smalls. No, that's from about a week or two ago, Rob, that they've apparently rigged it with explosives. Because again, that makes everything worse. Because if it's rigged with explosives, you can get a chain reaction. It doesn't have to be, one lucky or unlucky shell, depending on how you look at it, hitting the worst possible place. It could be something hitting anywhere and then a chain reaction going off. Some of the Europe might be okay, Scalia, but again, it's you have all the factors we can't know about, like how bad it would it be? Where would the wind blow? Well, you'd hope, Vintage Collectibles, that the person that replaces him would be smart enough to try and make a deal for himself to get, Russia out of it. But again, there's no way of knowing. That's a shame, speaking of Truth Media. No, Justin, what's this? I have no idea what you're on about there. You have to explain it in a proper comment, as in what you're talking about, rather than just saying there's a journal somewhere about something. Look it up. Anyway, I won't be on too much longer because this is a bit depressing, and as I streamed for 2 hours earlier. And I'll do a members stream tomorrow. I mean, obviously, a lot more people have watched this one, but it's not a nice topic, is it? Now, if you want something I'd actually recommend for over 18s, obviously, this is very nice, although it's quite expensive. It's like a Bailey's type thing. It's just nicer than Bailey's and cheaper. But when I say expensive, I mean it's more expensive than Aldi's rip-off of Bailey's, which I've not had in ages, actually. Ballycastle. Well, it's potentially worse than Chernobyl, as we said, because there's 6 reactors on the site, not 1. Yeah, Yorkshire Bailey's. It tastes exactly like Bailey's, just with a bit of a stronger flavour to it. That's a point, not breaker. If it's done to a Western standard, then yes, it will be better than the Soviet uranium. Yeah. Yeah, I like it, Flazzy. Well, I'll have to get a new. I'll have to get a new camera first, and with the price of everything at the moment, I'm not planning on doing that anytime soon. The problem is, Michael, is people can just print money, the politicians. I'd recommend you be nowhere on the same continent as it, in all honesty, boss. If you're in the US, you're probably, in all senses, quite all right. I'm not all right, but if you're in Eastern Europe or Central Europe, I'd be very worried. It depends. Well, this is the problem, Dwarven Miner. Is, let's say we did get a Chernobyl-like situation. Do you think? Yeah, like saying, I personally doubt that anybody would cooperate to try and fix it. As I said, in the UK, it just depends where the wind blows, but it'd still affect. Let's even say no fallout crosses the channel, right? It's still going to massively increase food prices and everything else. Wow, I'm probably not voting Tory, Rob, but I'd prefer Liz Truss to Richie Sunak. Fishy Rishi. But I preferred Kemi Badenoch out of all of them. But like I said, I'm not I'm not a Tory voter anyway, so wouldn't make a difference to me, because when the election comes around, I'd vote Lib Dem, just because they're the only people in our area that sometimes beat the Tories in elections. Because my life has not got any better since having Cameron in charge, May, Boris or anybody. Yeah, exactly, Rob. And if you're a Conservative Party member, you can vote. Yeah, speaking of Truth Media, we also had problems like that after Windscale in England, where they had to destroy lots of milk and things for quite a while, because all of them were contaminated with strontium-90. Now, it's not the fact we're saying it's like an atomic blast. We're saying that it's essentially a giant dirty bomb, because of the fact that like with the Chernobyl thing, it's like having like several bombs go off hour after hour with what it was doing in terms of spreading fallout. I prefer the rations in the sealed foil packs, boss, that you don't have to freeze, because then you don't need what do you call it? You don't need electricity to keep it cold or whatever. Again, I don't know anything about it, Justin. All I know is that basically when you get nuclear material in your body, you're pretty fucked. Look at Mary Curie, how it eventually got her, the radium girls, the guy that drank radium water, people that have been exposed to nuclear accidents in like the workplaces and various places. I've never bought potassium iodine or iodide, but in theory, you have to know to take that in advance. It only works if you take it in advance, and it's not something you want to take by accident. In theory, it works because it blocks your thyroid from absorbing. Is it iodine 131? But the point is, it's not a cure-all magic like Radex thing from Fallout. It's you have to be taking it in advance for long enough, and you still have to eventually stop taking it. I think the biggest worry of that, Rob, is that you get stuck inside it. No, the reactors are still running. Sean, they're still running the reactors. And bear in mind, the people running the reactors are Ukrainians being held at gunpoint, so that doesn't bode well either. Yeah, again, it just really depends, Dr. Skepfy, where the wind blows is basically all it comes down to with Fallout. Is if the further away you are, the safer it is. But I suppose Sweden from Ukraine isn't that far if it's blowing directly north. Yeah, fuzzy. a lot of governments would stock up on things like anti-radiation pills. It's just whether or not they distribute them to you in good time is another factor. Anyway, I'll be off. I will do a review on this Geiger counter tomorrow and actually test it with various materials and see how well it works. As we've already said, Tony, twice. But yeah, at the moment, like I said, this is something to keep an eye on, because what annoys me with a lot of the media is, even if you don't like the media like I don't, is they'll sometimes have this prominently in the news, what's going on in Zaporizhzhia, and then other times it's buried under loads of celebrity bullshit and whatever else. So even when there's been quite important updates on stuff going on, a lot of the time you just can't find it easily in the main news. All right, Pergio, glad you enjoyed it, if that's the right word. Yeah, and let's pick, like we said, like you're saying before in the other stream, you have to make sure you have enough for you and your family, so it's not all being like one bottle being shared out between a load of people or whatever. I've got loads, Boss Minecraft. You might want to watch my videos on them. The one I'm reviewing tomorrow is this one, the GM100A, which is quite a small little one with a little belt clip on the back. 0.017 millirontgen per hour in my room, or 0.49 counts per second. You can see there where I was testing it against the check source over there. Look where the meter was a lot higher. That was actually just some Fiesta ware, but still. Or in microsievert, 0.17 microsievert. You've not been shadow banned, Justin, but bear in mind YouTube has a massive list of words that they just don't let you post. Anyway, I'll be off now. But like I said, make sure everybody keeps an eye on this. I'll do a video update every now and then if there's anything major with it. I'm also checking radiation levels daily, by the way, so if I do pick something up, I'll be sure to let people know pretty much straight away. Obviously, at the moment, as far as everybody's aware, there's not been any radiation releases. When you say cheap Chinese Geiger units, do you mean ones like this? This is another one I've got to review that I can't even read, look. But I know how to operate it, even if I can't translate it into English. But these are all right, but they're quite limited in what they can do. But I'll do a video review on one of these at some point. At least this one has a working battery compartment. Well, no, speaking of truth, what I mean is there's no menu option on this to set it to English language. Annoyingly, I've got one that's stuck in Chinese. But I can read the measurements. It's just annoying that, you know, I can't have that in English there. But anyway, yeah, like I said, I'll do a video on that at some point. Annoyingly, the sound doesn't work on this one, it seems. Oh, it beeps when you turn it on, didn't it? Did it beep, or was that the other one beeping? No, I reckon the speaker's fucked on this one. It has got a speaker, but I've not heard it make any noise when I've tested this one. So I guess it just doesn't work. The speaker on it. My other Chinese one works, but this one doesn't. But again, oh well. I got that one for free anyway, so. Right, I'm getting rid of the person that's been asking that stupid questions over and over, because like I said, I'm not watching the fucking Minions movie, so stop asking. But yeah, so yeah, I'll let anybody know if I get any updates on stuff, either in the news or, like I say, if I get a reading from something mysterious, I'll let everybody know. But anyway, have a good evening, everybody, even if the news is a bit bleak. And I'll be doing a members stream tomorrow, probably 7 PM, because I'll be more awake than doing it at 8 PM. So see you then.